I moved into a super cheap apartment, and the previous tenant left 43 sticky notes, with rules all over the house. I laughed at all of them until I broke rule number 6. I found the apartment online at a price that did not make sense. 2 bedrooms in a good area, for less than what I was paying for my shared room. The listing had 3 blurry photos and a description that said, "Available immediately. No questions accepted about the previous tenant." That last part should have been my first warning. But when you are 23 years old, have a receptionist salary, and a roommate who eats your food from the refrigerator, with the excuse that communism begins in the kitchen, you do not question low prices. You accept them. I signed the contract without reading the fine print, because who reads the fine print when the alternative is to continue sleeping next to someone who snores and steals your yogurt? On moving day, I went up with my 4 boxes, opened the door, and the first thing I saw made me drop the box I had in my hands. Sticky notes everywhere, on the walls, on the mirrors, on the windows, in the drawers inside the closets, on the ceiling above the bed, on the bathroom floor, on the inside of the refrigerator door. 43 yellow sticky notes with tight, desperate handwriting. Each note had a number and a rule. Note 1 stuck on the front door from the inside: do not open the door after midnight. It does not matter who knocks. It does not matter what voice you hear. Do not open it. Note 2, on the living room window: the window on the left side does not open. Do not try to open it. If it opens by itself, close it immediately without looking outside. Note 3, on the bathroom mirror: if you wash your face, and when you raise your eyes, there is someone behind you in the mirror, do not turn around. Close your eyes, count to 7 and open them. They will no longer be there. I laughed. I laughed so much that I sat on the floor of the empty apartment, surrounded by boxes and yellow sticky notes, laughing like a crazy person. The previous tenant was clearly someone with psychological problems, or a very dedicated prankster. 43 notes of paranormal rules, with the seriousness of an appliance instruction manual. I called my friend Carlotta and read some to her over the phone. Note 7 in the kitchen: if you hear footsteps in the kitchen during the night, do not go investigate in the morning. You are going to find a glass of water on the table. That was not there before. No, do not drink it. Pour it down the sink. Note 12, in the hallway: at 3:16 in the morning, the hallway gets cold. Do not leave your room between 3:15 and 3:17. 1 minute. Just wait 1 minute. Carlotta was dying of laughter. There are 43, I told her. I counted them. There is one for every possible situation. There is one that says that if the neighbor's cat stares at you from the window, do not return the look. Who is afraid of a cat? You have to send me photos of all of them. Carlotta told me. This is gold for TikTok. I took photos of each note, thinking about uploading them as funny content. I removed the ones that were in visible places and put them in a drawer. I left the ones that were in hidden places, because I was too lazy to look for them all. I settled in, unpacked my things. The first night, I slept like a baby in my new super cheap apartment. The first week was normal, totally normal. I went to work, came back, cooked, watched series, slept. The apartment was quiet, the neighborhood peaceful. I felt like an idiot for having given even a second of attention to the notes from the crazy person who lived here before. Until Thursday of the second week, note 6 was stuck on the bathroom door on the inside. So you saw it every time you closed the door to shower. The rule said when you shower, do not close your eyes for more than 10 seconds. If you need to rinse your face, do it quickly. If you close them for more than 10 seconds, when you open them, the bathroom is going to be different. And what changed is not going to return to normal. Only that. That was the one that made me laugh the most the first week. Who counts the seconds with their eyes closed in the shower? It is absurd. The notes were all absurd. The rules of a mentally ill person, who probably saw shadows because they took the wrong pills. On Thursday, I was showering after work. I was tired. I had fought with my boss, and the only thing I wanted was hot water and silence. I stood under the stream and closed my eyes. I did not count the seconds because I was not thinking about the notes. I was thinking about whether it was worth continuing in a job where they treated me like furniture. I closed them for much longer, more than 10 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe 2. When I opened them, everything was the same. The bathroom, the curtain, the steam, the same shower. I laughed at myself because for a second, an irrational part of my brain had expected something to change. See, nothing. The notes are garbage. I rinsed off, turned off the faucet, grabbed the towel, and left the bathroom. I came down the hallway toward my room and stopped. There was a glass of water on the kitchen table. I did not put a glass of water on the table. I had not entered the kitchen since I arrived from work. I went directly to the bathroom. My boxes were unpacked, and my glasses were all in the cupboard. This glass was in the exact center of the table, filled to the brim with water that did not move even a millimeter, as if they had placed it there with the precision of a surgeon. Note 7. If you hear footsteps in the kitchen during the night, in the morning, you are going to find a glass of water on the table. That was not there before. Do not drink it.
Put it down the sink.
But it was not nighttime. It was 7 in the evening. And I did not hear footsteps because I was in the shower, with my eyes closed. For more than 10 seconds, I stood in the hallway, looking at the glass with wet hair dripping onto the floor. For 30 seconds, I convinced myself that I had put the glass there and had forgotten it. The mind does those things when you are tired. You convince yourself that you did something you did not do. I grabbed the glass to pour it down the sink, as the note said, but I stopped. Why was I going to follow the instructions of a stranger? With mental problems? It was a glass of water. Just water. I smelled it. It did not smell like anything. I looked at it against the light. It was transparent, normal. It was water. I left it on the table and went to sleep, thinking I was being ridiculous. At 3 in the morning, I woke up because I was thirsty. I went to the kitchen for water and stopped short at the entrance. The glass was still on the table, but it was no longer full. It was empty, completely empty and dry, as if it had never had water. And next to the glass, there was something that was not there before. A sticky note, yellow, new. It was not one of the original 43. This was new. The ink still looked fresh. The handwriting was the same type, desperate handwriting of the previous tenant. It said, Note 44. You should not have closed your eyes for so long. Now it saw you. And when it sees you, it does not stop looking at you. I already checked and the left window is open. Do not look toward the window, but close it before it enters. You have about 2 minutes. I am sorry. I tried to warn you. My body froze. I felt the cold air before I understood it with my mind. It was coming from the living room, from the direction of the left window. The one that Note 2 said does not open. The one I should not try to open. The one that if it opened by itself, I should close immediately. Without looking outside, it was open. I could feel the cold air from the street entering through it. And the note said I had 2 minutes. The worst thing was not the cold air, nor the window, nor the note. The worst thing was that the note was new. Someone had written it while I slept. Someone was in my kitchen, put a new note, and that person knew what was going to happen to me, because it happened to them first. The previous tenant was not crazy. They were trying to protect the next person, me. I walked toward the living room without turning on the light, because something inside me, something animal, something that does not need logic to function, told me that turning on the light would be worse. I walked in the darkness toward the left window. I could feel the air getting colder and colder. 3 steps, 4, 5. I reached the window and felt it with my hands. It was completely open, but before closing it, I made the mistake that the note warned me not to make. I looked outside. There was nothing, just the empty street and the other buildings with their dark windows. Nothing. I let out a breath of relief and was about to close the window when I noticed it. In the building across the street, in a window on the 3rd floor, exactly at my height, there was someone standing looking at me. It was not a vague silhouette or an ambiguous shadow. It was a figure that was standing perfectly still, in front of the open window, looking directly toward where I was, and it was smiling. Never in my life did I close a window so fast. I locked it, ran to my room, locked the door, got into bed, and covered myself up to my head like a 5-year-old girl. At 3:16 exactly, my hallway became so cold that I could see my own breath from the bed. Note 12. At 3:16, the hallway gets cold. Do not leave your room 1 minute. Just wait 1 minute. I counted 60 seconds with my eyes squeezed shut. When I reached 60, the cold disappeared as if it had never existed. I did not sleep the rest of the night. When the sun came out, I went to the drawer where I had stored all the notes and took them out one by one. I read all of them. The 43. This time I did not laugh at any of them. I stuck them exactly where they were originally, each one in its place as the previous tenant left them. Then I read Note 44, the new one, the one about the glass. I turned it over. On the back there was something I had not seen in the darkness. A phone number and a phrase. When you are ready to know what lives in that apartment, call me. My name is Gabriel. I lived there 14 months. And what is there is not a ghost. It is something much worse than a ghost. And it chose you just like it chose me. I looked at the 43 notes, distributed throughout my super cheap apartment. I looked at the left window, which was now closed, the empty glass on the kitchen table, and I grabbed my phone. But before calling Gabriel, I called the building administrator and asked her a single question. How many tenants has this apartment had in the last 5 years? There was a long silence. Then she said with a voice that tried to sound normal, but did not succeed, 14. 14 tenants in 5 years. Miss, I recommend that you do not ask questions and just follow the rules. They left you. Those who follow the rules left on their own. Those who did not follow them, well, you're number 15. Do me a favor and be the one who last to continue. My finger hovered over the call button. The screen of my phone illuminated the dark kitchen, casting a sickly bluish pallor over the empty glass on the table. 14 tenants. I was number 15. I pressed send and lifted the phone to my ear. The line rang once. Twice. On the third ring, a sharp click echoed, followed by a wet, heavy static that sounded like someone breathing through crushed glass. You closed your eyes in the shower, didn't you? The voice was raspy, exhausted, and unmistakably male. Gabriel. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask who I was. I did. I whispered, my vocal cords tight. I broke Rule 6. And there's a new note. And the window. You looked out the left window, he interrupted, a bitter chuckle scraping through the speaker. Let me guess. Third floor, across the street. The smiling man. Yes. What is he? The administrator said. Don't talk to the administrator. Gabriel barked, the sudden volume making me flinch. Mrs. Gable is the one who feeds it. She's the curator. The apartment is the exhibit. He paused, coughing violently before catching his breath. Listen to me very carefully. You think this is a haunted house? It isn't. Ghosts are echoes of dead people. What's in that apartment was never human. It's a spatial parasite. It mimics reality, but it doesn't quite understand it. The rules, my notes, they aren't there to keep the monsters away. They are there to keep the fabric of the apartment from tearing. Tearing? I looked around my kitchen. The peeling linoleum, the humming refrigerator, the cheap fluorescent light overhead. It all looked painfully mundane. The apartment is a hunting trap, Gabriel explained, his voice dropping to a frantic whisper. When you closed your eyes for too long, you let it shift the geometry. The bathroom didn't change, right? But the space outside the bathroom did. You're no longer in the building you walked into 2 weeks ago. You're in its stomach. The smiling man across the street? That's not a neighbor. That's the lore. My blood ran cold. How do I get out? You don't just walk out. If you open the front door right now, it won't lead to the hallway. It will lead to nowhere. You have to force the apartment to reset. You have to survive until Sunday morning. That's when the parasite sleeps, to digest the fear. But it knows you broke a rule. It knows you're off script. It will actively try to make you break the rest. A loud, hollow thud echoed from down the hall. I froze. The sound had come from the second bedroom. The room I had kept closed since I moved in, because I didn't have enough furniture to fill it. Gabriel. I breathed into the receiver. Something is in the second bedroom. Rule 18, Gabriel said instantly. What does note 18 say? I scrambled to the drawer I had emptied earlier, throwing the 43 notes onto the counter. I sifted through the sea of yellow squares until I found the jagged handwriting of the number 18. Note 18, keep the door to the second bedroom closed. If you hear a coin drop inside, slide a dollar bill under the crack. Do not wait for change. It says to slide a dollar bill under the door. I read out loud. Do you have cash? Panic gripped my chest. I don't know. I use Apple Pay. I'm practically broke. Find a dollar, Gabriel said, his voice deadly serious. If it drops the coin and you don't pay the toll, it comes out to collect. Find $1. The line went dead. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by a sudden, sharp ping from down the hall. The sound of metal hitting hardwood. A coin. It was waiting. I sprinted to the living room, tearing into my purse. I dumped the contents onto the cheap rug. Lip balm, keys, receipts, tampons, an empty gum wrapper. No wallet. My wallet was in my winter coat by the door. I scrambled to the coat rack. Note 1 was still plastered to the wood. Do not open the door after midnight. I didn't need to open it, I just needed my coat. I plunged my hand into the pocket, yanked out my wallet, and ripped it open. 3 credit cards, a maxed out debit card, and a crumpled, torn $5 bill. Another ping echoed from the hallway. Louder this time. I ran down the corridor, stopping 2 feet from the closed door of the second bedroom. The wood of the door looked wrong. The grains seemed to be moving, swirling imperceptibly, like dark water. From beneath the crack, a sickly yellow light bled out onto the floorboards. I dropped to my knees, my hands shaking violently as I tried to flatten the crumpled $5 bill. From the other side of the door, I heard breathing. It wasn't human. It sounded like a massive, wet lung expanding against the wood, accompanied by the scratching of something sharp against the floor. I slid the $5 bill under the crack. I waited. Note 18 said do not wait for change, but my legs were paralyzed. I couldn't stand up. Through the crack, a shadow blocked the yellow light. Something on the other side was crouching right in front of me. Slowly, a pale, elongated finger with too many joints slid back under the door. It was pushing something toward me. 4 $1 bills. And a copper penny. Change. My heart hammered against my ribs. Note 18 said don't wait for change. But it had given it to me. I didn't touch the money. I crawled backward, stood up, and bolted to my own bedroom, locking the door behind me. Day 15, Friday. I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of my room with an iron baseball bat I kept for self-defense, staring at the closed door. When morning finally broke, filtering gray city light through my blinds, the apartment felt terrifyingly normal. I opened my bedroom door. The hallway was empty. The $4 bills and the penny were gone. I needed to leave. I didn't care about the lease, my deposit, or my belongings. I was going to pack a single bag, go to work, and crash on Carlotta's couch forever. I packed my duffel bag in 3 minutes. I threw open the front door, half expecting to see a void, but the dingy, carpeted hallway of my apartment building greeted me. The smell of old cabbage and bleach was intoxicatingly normal. I ran down the stairs to the lobby. Mrs. Gable, the building administrator, was sitting behind her thick plexiglass window, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup. She looked up as I approached, her eyes falling to my duffel bag. "Going somewhere, dear?" she asked. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were dead. Flat, glassy, like a shark's. "I'm breaking the lease," I said, my voice trembling but defiant. "Keep the deposit." "I'm out," Mrs. Gable sighed, setting down her coffee. "You can't." "Watch me," I snapped, turning toward the glass double doors of the lobby. "It's Friday," she said softly. I stopped. "So what?" Mrs. Gable tapped a manicured fingernail against her desk. "Did you read note 31? I swallowed hard. I hadn't memorized them all. "I don't care about the notes anymore." "You should," she said, leaning closer to the speaking hole in the glass. Note 31. The elevator doesn't work on Fridays. Do not take the stairs down past the second floor. The lobby does not exist on Fridays. I'm literally in the lobby right now. "I'm looking at you." Mrs. Gable smiled. It was a wide, stretching smile that bared too many teeth. It looked exactly like the smile of the man in the window across the street. "Are you sure, dear?" she whispered. I turned around to look at the glass double doors leading to the street. Through the glass, there was no street. There were no cars, no pavement, no morning sun. There was only a sprawling, infinite expanse of gray, pulsing flesh, breathing rhythmically against the glass. I screamed and stumbled backward. I looked back at Mrs. Gable's booth. It was empty. The lobby was decaying before my eyes, the wallpaper peeling back to reveal rotting wood and black mold. The apartment was the stomach. I was already being digested. I ran back to the stairs, ignoring the burning in my lungs as I sprinted up to the 4th floor, shoving my key into the lock of my apartment and slamming the door behind me. I locked the deadbolt, the chain, and leaned against the wood, sobbing uncontrollably. Gabriel was right. I couldn't just walk out. I had to survive until Sunday morning to force a reset. I looked at my phone. It was Friday, 9 a.m. I had 48 hours to live. Day 16, Saturday, the breaking point. The notes started changing. That was how it tried to break me. The parasite knew I was relying on Gabriel's rules, so it began weaponizing them. It started in the kitchen. I went to get a knife, something, anything to defend myself. On the refrigerator, note 9 originally read, "If the fridge hums a melody, unplug it immediately. Do not listen to the song." But when I looked at it now, the yellow paper was stained with dark, wet ink. The handwriting was no longer Gabriel's desperate scrawl. It was elegant looping cursive. Note 9. You look so pretty when you cry. Open the fridge. He left a gift for you. I backed away, refusing to touch the handle. I walked into the living room. Note 22, stuck to the TV screen, used to say, "Never turn to channel 4. Now it read, "Turn around. He's right behind you." I bit my lip so hard it bled. Do not acknowledge it. Do not let it anchor. I kept my eyes fixed forward, refusing to turn around, even though I could feel an icy breath brushing against the nape of my neck. I could smell it, a sickly sweet odor, like rotting flowers and copper. "I don't see you," I whispered to myself, tears streaming down my face. "I don't hear you. You aren't real." The breath disappeared. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text message from Gabriel. "Gabriel, it's going to push you to the limit tonight. It's starving. Whatever you do, do not look at the ceiling when the lights go out." I quickly texted back. "How do I reset it? You said I have to survive until Sunday. But what do I actually do?" The dots bubbled, indicating he was typing. "Gabriel, at 3:15 a.m., the hallway will get cold. Note 12. But this time, it won't just be cold. It will open the front door. The entity will try to come inside from the second bedroom, while the outside tries to come in through the front door. You have to stand in the hallway." Me, are you insane? Note 12 says do not leave my room. Gabriel, that was the rule for living in the apartment. You aren't in the apartment anymore. You are in its throat. If you stay in your room tonight, it will swallow you. You have to stand in the crossfire. Let the inside monster see the outside monster. It's a paradox. It breaks the geometry. It's how I escaped. I stared at the screen. The plan sounded suicidal. Standing in the hallway while two unfathomable horrors converged. Before I could type a reply, my phone screen glitched. The text conversation dissolved into black static, and a new message appeared. Not from Gabriel. The sender was listed as unknown. Unknown. He lied to you. He never escaped. Look out the left window. I froze. I slowly turned my head toward the living room window. The blinds were drawn, but the silhouette was visible through the thin fabric. The smiling man wasn't in the building across the street anymore. He was standing on my fire escape. But it wasn't just a man. As the silhouette pressed against the glass, I realized why the figure had seemed so tall. Its neck was broken, its head hanging at a 90-degree angle, but its face was pressed flat against the pane. Through the crack in the blinds, I saw his face. It was Gabriel. His eyes were milk white, his jaw stretched into an impossible, gaping grin that tore the flesh of his cheeks. He tapped a long, multi-jointed finger against the glass. Top, top, top. He hadn't survived 14 months and escaped. He had survived 14 months, and then the apartment had taken him. It was using him as a mouthpiece. The Gabriel I had spoken to on the phone, the one who told me to stand in the hallway at 3:15 a.m., was the parasite. It was trying to trick me into breaking the ultimate rule. Note 12. Do not leave your room between 3:15 and 3:17. 1 minute. Just wait 1 minute. I ran into my bedroom, slammed the door, and pushed my heavy wooden dresser against it. I dragged my mattress off the bed frame and wedged it against the dresser. I created a fortress. I looked at the clock on my nightstand. 11:45 p.m. The final countdown had begun. Day 17, Sunday, the paradox. By 2 a.m., the apartment began to shake. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a biological shudder, like a beast preparing to vomit. The walls groaned, and the drywall began to crack, oozing a thick, black substance that smelled like oxidized blood. The sticky notes on my bedroom wall began to peel themselves off, fluttering to the floor like dead autumn leaves. At 3 a.m., the lights shattered. Not went out, shattered. Every bulb in the room exploded simultaneously, showering me in glass. I huddled under a blanket in the darkest corner, gripping my baseball bat.
3:14 a.m.
The temperature plummeted. My breath plumed in the darkness in thick, white clouds. Frost rapidly crystallized across the glass of my bedroom window and crept over the walls. Note 12. The hallway gets cold. From the other side of my bedroom door, I heard it. The heavy, dragging sound from the second bedroom. The entity was out. It was dragging its bulk down the hallway. SCHHHHK. Thump. SCHHHHK. Thump. Then, from the front door of the apartment, came 3 loud knocks. No one. Do not open the door after midnight. It doesn't matter who knocks. Let me in. A voice pleaded from outside the front door. It sounded exactly like my best friend, Carlotta. Please, I'm freezing. Open the door. I covered my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. Don't listen. Don't open. Don't leave.
3:15 a.m.
The entity in the hallway reached my bedroom door. The handle jiggled. The locked deadbolt clicked open by itself.
No.
The entity pushed against the door. The heavy dresser groaned as the wood bowed inward under immense, unnatural pressure. Gabriel told you to come out, a voice whispered from the other side of the door. It wasn't one voice. It was 14 voices, speaking in perfect, overlapping unison. The voices of the previous tenants. It's so tight in here. We want to stretch. The dresser slid backward an inch. 3:16 a.m. The temperature dropped so violently that the moisture in my eyes began to freeze. The dresser slid back another 2 inches. A sliver of the hallway became visible. Through the crack, I didn't see an apartment hallway. I saw an abyss of swirling gray light, and in the center of it, a mass of tangled limbs, pale faces, and stretching smiles. It was a single organism made of 14 people, thrashing and screaming silently. A long, bone-white arm snaked through the crack in the door, reaching toward me. 1 minute. Just wait 1 minute. But I didn't have a minute. The arm was elongating, its fingers twitching as it reached across the room, wrapping around the ankle of my boots. It yanked me forward. I screamed, clawing at the carpet, but the strength of the thing was absolute. It dragged me toward the crack in the door, toward the writhing mass of faces. I saw Gabriel's face embedded in its chest, smiling that horrible, ripped smile. You're number 15, the mass hissed. I was going to die. I was going to be absorbed. The rules had failed me because the entity had changed the game. Then, an epiphany hit me like a bolt of lightning. The rules aren't physical laws. They are anchors of belief. The entity feeds on perception. I stopped clawing at the floor. I let it drag me closer. With my free hand, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the yellow sticky notepad I had kept, along with a pen. If this thing operated on rules, I could write my own. I clicked the pen. My hand was shaking so hard the ink barely transferred, but as the entity dragged me to within an inch of the swirling abyss, I slammed the pad onto the floorboards and wrote with all the adrenaline left in my veins. Note 45. The tenant in the second bedroom is evicted at 3:17 a.m. Any entity remaining inside the apartment after 3:17 a.m. belongs to the outside. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if I had the authority to make a rule. But I believed it. With every ounce of my terrified, screaming soul, I believed it. I ripped the note off the pad and slapped it directly onto the bone-white arm wrapped around my ankle. The clock on my nightstand ticked. 3:17 a.m. The entity stopped. The arm gripping my leg went rigid. The 14 faces in the mass suddenly stopped smiling. Their eyes widened in uniform, agonizing terror. They weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking past me. Through the walls of my bedroom, a low, booming horn sounded. It didn't sound like a noise. It felt like a vibration that rattled my teeth. The front door of the apartment, which I had never opened, blew off its hinges with a deafening crash. The outside had been invited in. I couldn't see what came through the front door, and I knew instinctively that if I looked, my mind would fracture. A shadow colder than the freezing room washed over the floor. It surged past my door, bypassing me entirely, and crashed into the massive limbs in the hallway. The entity screamed. It was a sound of cosmic, tearing agony. The pale arm released my ankle and frantically tried to pull back into the abyss, but the shadow had it. The shadow dragged the mass of flesh backward, out of the hallway, out of the apartment, pulling it into the void beyond the front door. The walls of the apartment buckled, folding inward like a crushed cardboard box. The floor vanished beneath me. I was falling through empty, freezing blackness. I closed my eyes. I counted to 7.
1, 2,
3.
4, 5, 6, 7. Epilogue.
I hit the ground hard. I gasped for air, my eyes flying open. I was lying on the cold, hard tiles of a bathroom floor. Steam billowed around me. Above me, the shower was running, hot water cascading onto the porcelain. I sat up, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. I looked around. It was my bathroom. The same cheap shower curtain, the same cracked mirror, the same yellow tiles. I scrambled to my feet, throwing open the bathroom door. I stood in the hallway. My boxes were stacked neatly in the living room, exactly where I had left them on moving day. Through the window, the morning sun was shining brightly over a normal, bustling city street. No gray sky. No fleshy lobby. It was day 1. The apartment had reset. I walked into the kitchen. The table was empty. No glass of water. I walked to the front door. I unlocked the deadbolt, turned the handle, and stepped out into the hallway of the building. The smell of cheap laundry detergent filled the air. A neighbor, a tired-looking woman in scrubs, walked past me, gave me a polite nod, and headed for the stairs. I was out. I didn't pack. I didn't grab my clothes, my TV, or my furniture. I walked down the stairs, out the front doors, and onto the sunlit sidewalk. I didn't stop walking until I was 3 miles away, sitting in a crowded, noisy diner, drinking black coffee until my hands stopped shaking. It's been 6 months since I left that super cheap apartment. I live with Carlotta now. I don't care that she eats my yogurt or snores like a freight train. Her mundane, annoying human habits are the most beautiful things in the world to me. I took a second job, paying double the rent just to live in a building that was constructed last year. No history. No ghosts. Mrs. Gable never called me about abandoning my lease. The deposit was a small price to pay for my life. I thought I was completely free. I thought I had outsmarted the parasite by using its own logic against it. But yesterday, I went into the office break room to get a cup of coffee. I was alone. I poured the coffee, stirred in my sugar, and turned around to head back to the reception desk. I stopped. There, perfectly centered on the break room table, was a glass of water, filled to the brim. It hadn't been there 10 seconds ago. And stuck to the side of the glass was a small, yellow sticky note. The handwriting wasn't Gabriel's desperate scrawl, nor was it the elegant cursive of the entity. It was my handwriting. Note 46, it remembers you. I looked up, staring out the break room window at the office building across the street. And on the 3rd floor, pressing his face against the glass, was Gabriel. He was smiling. And slowly, very slowly, he raised a hand and waved.